Aloha, everyone. We will be starting in promptly 2 minutes at 1:01 p.m. Thank you for joining us. Hello, everyone. We will be starting in 1 minute. Thank you for joining us.
Mai kamakani o launi ui ke ahe o ka olu. E kipa mai ka mehana I ka poli o ka ina Niuhelewai. Paia e ko leo. Aloha e, aloha e, aloha e.
Thank you, Kalani. Mahalo, Kalani. That was Kalani Flores, Hawaiian Studies Instructor, Cultural and Place-Based Campus Coordinator, and Title III Project Director. Aloha, everyone, and welcome to our third HCC Community Connections webinar entitled Ola Niuhelewai, Flourishing Together Through Campus and Community Pilina. I am Karen Lee, the Interim Chancellor of the college. We decided to launch these conversations this year to engage the Hawaii community during this challenging time in honor of our college's 100th anniversary. Honolulu Community College is the oldest UH community college in the state. We offer a strong liberal arts program enabling students to seamlessly transfer to a four-year university, plus more than 20 career and technical education programs in a wide range of in-demand fields, such as carpentry, refrigeration, AC technology, to diesel mechanics, to architecture, engineering, and CAD technologies. Honolulu Community College also offers a robust non-credit program and the largest apprenticeship program in the state. Since we were unable to hold our biannual celebration dinner during our centennial year, we instead decided to hold these community webinars. We have also decided to launch a campaign to raise $100,000 by the end of this calendar year, so the end of this month. I am pleased to announce that we are nearing that goal thanks to so many friends and supporters of our campus. In addition to our students and faculty, I hope you will support our college by donating during this special time through the UH Foundation. Next slide, I have some general housekeeping announcements. So only the panelists and moderator will be allowed to speak. You may submit your questions through the Q&A link, which is at the bottom of your screen. Questions will be incorporated into the webinar by the moderators. and the webinar will be recorded and posted to the HCC website. Our agenda today is to do some introductions, the video overview, and we will have a time for Q&A for the panel. And now I am pleased to introduce our moderators. Alapaki Luke, our first moderator, who is Associate Professor, a Division Chair of Kulana Hawaii, which is our Hawaiian Programs Division at HCC. And then we have Kalani Flores, who you've already met, Hawaiian Studies Instructor, Culture and Place-Based Campus Coordinator, and Title III Project Director. I will turn it over to you guys.
Mahalo nui, Chancellor Lee. Aloha e Pilina mai. Welcome to everyone to our webinar entitled Ola Niuhelewai, Flourishing Together Through Campus and Community Pilina. Ola Niuhelewai is translated as Niuhelewai lives, or the life of Niuhelewai. Niuhelewai is the traditional place name of where our main campus is situated in Kapalama, Kahupua. We are in the lower regions, more Makai. We're more than just across the street from Costco. We're a community college, and the name community is a big part of what we do. Flourishing together through campus and community Pilina. Pilina is the word for relationships. Yeah. So more importantly, even more so during this pandemic, how we have strived to maintain our Pilina with our students, faculty, staff, campus community, and greater community as well. So we'll be covering the goals and the details of this program, and I'd like to hand it over to Kalani.
Mahalo nui e Alapaki. Mahalo. So over the past 5 years, our campus has developed and implemented Hawaiian cultural and place-based methodologies as a means to enhance our ability to carry out and fulfill our individual koleana or responsibilities as faculty, staff, and administrators. Adopting these methods allowed for a better sense of connection with students and the community we serve.
This endeavor was made possible through a U.S. Department of Education Title III federal grant entitled Ho'alaho, renewing a pathway to student success through culture and place-based learning.
Yes, and to provide us with an overview of the goals and objectives of the Ho'alaho program is Jarina Pacaro and Hau'oli Lorenzo Ilarco. Both Jarina and Hau'oli served as co-facilitators and held the position of Culture Place-Based Coordinator for the Ho'alaho Culture and Place-Based program. And along with Jarina and Hau'oli, we also have two panelists that will be joining us later on that Alapaki will be introducing as well.
Aloha mai kako. I'm Jarina Fakaro. So a little bit about Ho'alaho. Ho'alaho Culture and Place-Based Program is a year-long cohort program open to those that worked on the Honolulu Community College campus. Both instructional and non-instructional staff are invited to learn and experience place-based approaches to education. This program focuses on Pilina, just as Alapaki had mentioned, meaning relationships. And the first relationship is to the land, the Aina. See, because Aina shapes us and informs our values. And earlier, Kalani opened with an Oli Ho'okipa, a welcome. And if you listen closely, you heard Olau Niu. And that's the name of the wind in the area of Niuhelewai, which is the name of the Iliaina that the campus of Honolulu Community College resides. Now think about the place where you grew up. Was it near a beach? Or perhaps up Mauka, maybe on a farm, or even in urban Honolulu. Wherever it is, that place has shaped how you perceive the world. This is the reason we take the time to connect to Aina in this place-based program. We wanted to introduce our staff to the Ahupua'a of Kapalama, For many, when we say Kapalama, they may think of maybe the school on the hill, Kamehameha Schools, or the canal, or even Costco. But did you know that under the cement parking lot of Costco was once a fish pond? And there are mo'olelo about that place. Perhaps you even might have known, or may have known, or maybe not known that there are springs under Niuhelewai. And therefore, that's why we have lots of puddles that back up on the campus when it rains at Honolulu Community College. Aina, Hawaii's land, are like a library, and each peak or ridge or even sections of the land have names. The names then help us to recall the stories and histories of the place. And these stories also give us guidance and insight into the resources available in that particular area.
Ai, mahalo nui e anake aloha kākou, o wau no ho'i ke ia o Hau'oli Lorenzo Ilarko, he kumu olelo Hawaii wau. My name is Hau'oli and I teach Hawaiian language, and very happy to be here today to talk about ho'aloho just a little bit. So basically said ho'aloho was a professional development program, right? So what we wanted to do with ho'aloho was to give people a ho'aloho, right? And so what does ho'aloho mean, right? So we translate ho'aloho as a reawakening or a sort of rejuvenation, right? So we look at these words very specifically. You can see on your screen, ho'alaho. Ho'ala means to awaken, right? Ala itself means to wake up, to be woke, to be up, and even to be aware, right? Ho, we might be familiar with this word as such as hana ho, right? We have ho meaning new, fresh, recent, again, or even more. And there's another kind of hidden word in this phrase, right? So we have ho'alaho, and within that we have ho'a, right? That term ho'a, we use that to mean ignite, awake, illuminate, to light up, and to burn, to blaze, right? And so for us, we really look at this image, right? And I really want all of you guys out there to look at this image and really just study it for a moment, right? And so this is a sunrise with some moku, some islands in the back. And so for us, really, this is what the ho'alaho experience is, right? It's really about illuminating that aina, right? It's really, as Auntie Jurina said, right? It's the aina is the library, right? So when we give people that ho'alaho, when we illuminate the aina, right? It's allowing the ability for our participants to see this library that is upon the aina, right? Their ability to recognize the stories, to retell these stories, and even to be a part of these stories, right? And so really, again, this ho'alaho, this reawakening, this rejuvenation is to have that consciousness about the relationships that you have to people, place, and kuleana, right? Kuleana meaning your responsibility. So our program has been really based in these pilina that we call it. As Alapaki said, these are relationships, right? So these pilina are sort of relationship-based themes or even competencies that we taught, right? So these 4 competencies, we call them Ike Pilina, right? Which is that ability to develop and maintain respectful relationships in all aspects of life, right? Ike Honua, which is that ability to establish a pilina relationship to place by having an increased sense of place and a better understanding and appreciation for Hawaii, the history, the culture, and most specifically the ahupua'a, or that sort of land division that we're in, Niuhelewai Kapalama. And then we have Ike Piko'u, right, which is sort of this willingness and this humility, this humbleness to be able to develop, learn, change, and adapt, right? So you have to kind of put yourself into that shoes of being a learner, right? And then our last one is Ike Kuleana, which is that ability to understand your responsibility, right? And kuleana doesn't only translate as responsibility, but it also translates into your privilege, right? So understanding your responsibility and your privilege to Hawaii, to the aina, and for our faculty and staff, right, to our campus, to their students, and even to each other, right? And so again, our main hope is really to help our participants understand that difference between oihana, this term that we say oihana in Hawaiian, or occupation, right? And so to put it sort of kind of in layman's terms, right? And one thing that I was always told when I was going to business school is find a job and not a career, right? So a job is maybe something that you go to for 9 to 5, right? A career is something that you might flourish in. Same thing with oihana and occupation. Oihana means something that you are absolutely good at, right? You find the job that you're just a pinnacle at, right? Occupation is just a time and a space that you're just occupying, right? So you want to find your oihana. And our hopes through this program is that we help you find that oihana through your ho'alaho, right? Through that illumination of the aina, right? So you can become a part of that mo'olelo and be an active participant of our community. And of course, a positive contributor to our campus, our students, and each other. Mahalo.
So everybody say ho'ala ho, ho'ala ho. So this unique professional development program is not about lectures and reading, although there are parts of that. But it's also designed for each individual to explore their own journey, to reflect on their reasons why they do what they do on campus. So Hau'oli and I were not standing there as the sage on the stage, but really just to facilitate learning experiences where it would touch the na'au, the deep seat of the soul, so that the participants could do their own reflection. It's kind of, the program was created sort of to support students in an indirect way, sort of using that metaphor of maybe the mala Niuhelewai, which is our mala on campus. As the taro grows, the soil needs to be well taken care of, the sun needs to come in. And so we were kind of like nurturing and nourishing the kumu and the service providers, student service providers, as they work with our students, so that the students can be successful and achieve their own dreams, to become active, positive contributors in the community. And so all of our Hawaiian programs at Hulili Ke Kui, which includes Ho'alaho, the cultural focus programs are vehicles in reshaping our campus to align with the University of Hawaii's aspiration to be the foremost Indigenous serving institution as it embraces its unique responsibility to the people, language, and culture of Hawaii's people. So mahalo nui. Back to you, Alapakian Kalani.
Mahalo nui Yaulua e Jarina and Hau'oli for providing that overview.
Yes, mahalo. So as educators, we understand that the content of our lessons are very important as it sets the foundation for learning. Just as important is the delivery of our content. As we continue to build our program, we made it a point to provide learning opportunities in various ways, such as building a traditional hale on campus, huaka'i, or excursions to Wahipana, which are significant places or sites, and to visit culture and place-based focused institutions and programs, as well as conducting twice-a-week campus PICO sessions that ground and prepare participants mentally and spiritually for the day, and other activities. The following video clip that we're about to see is a compilation of visuals of a few activities that we were able to implement over the years on our campus.
One of Ho'alaho's endeavors is to provide a Hawaiian culture and Aina-based professional learning program for faculty, staff, and administrators.
We do this by providing learning experiences that incorporate building relationships, increasing awareness of this place, and learning through Hawaii's culture.
We believe that through this opportunity to become learners, participants can create connections between Hawaiian values, beliefs, and practices with their capacity as instructors or service providers in order to support student success and completion at Honolulu Community College.
One of the strategies that we utilize are huaka'i, which are trips, voyages, journeys to Mauliola and Mokauea.
We're going to kilo like our kupuna did. So we're going to kilo our body and then we're going to let go.
Being involved with this cohort has completely changed my ESL pedagogy and curriculum and has brought new life and a deep sense of Pilina into my teaching at HonCC.
Let it go out to the ocean. Today is all about cleansing and healing and understanding that true concept of what our ancestors, all of our ancestors, wanted us to know. How to get back in tune with nature. And then everything else just falls into place.
Same genealogy or mokuauhau of the original planting time immemorial, yeah? We're planting the next generation. They separated from their parent already when you harvest it, and they're gonna start their own ohana. And then when they harvest it, their next generation oha will be planted. That's why you get the name ohana for family.
The sound of fresh kalo or taro being pounded into poi. This kalo is fresh from Honolulu Community College's garden, Kamala o Niuhelewai, located towards the Pico or the center of the campus. Every April, the Honolulu CC community comes together for the college's annual Ho'olaule'a to celebrate the bounty of the garden and to help raise awareness about Hawaiian culture and sustainability.
And the garden is to promote food security in Hawaii, to supplement our food, to create more awareness for the young ones. We also promote organic growing as well as sustainability.
Mai ka makani o launi ui ke ahe o ka olu olu. E ki pa mai ka mehana I ka poli o ka ina Niuhelewai. Paia e koleo. Aloha e aloha e aloha e. Mahalo. We would like to send a special mahalo to Rochelle Midro or Rocky, and she's known by most of us, and our multimedia team for putting together this video. At this time, I'd like to turn the floor back over to Alapaki, who's going to introduce our panel and start our panel session with a few questions regarding their participation in the teaching and learning program. Alapaki?
Mahalo nui, Kalani. You folks have already heard from and met Jarina Pacaro as well as Haoli Lorenzo Ilarco. Jarina is our Kukalahale Title III program coordinator. Haoli is actually our instructor of Hawaiian language, and he was a previous Ho'alaho coordinator before his position as instructor of Hawaiian language. We have Maureen Kearns, instructor of mathematics, who went through our cohort, as well as Jill Turaizumi, our counselor at Honolulu Community College, who also participated in our Ho'alaho cohort. So as you see, we have people from diverse areas on our campus: student services, mathematics, support, Hawaiian language, Hawaiian studies. Yes, and as educators and professionals, we have developed our own set of strategies and perspectives on what we feel works best in our field of expertise. Of course, not too often we hear professionals adopting a more cultural approach to fulfilling their kuleana or their duties. And if I may just briefly explain that this program is for participation from administrators, staff, and faculty, with the end goal, of course, to help our students succeed and help them identify using Hawaiian culture and place-based approaches, but not only to identify with Hawaiian culture, but their own culture as well, to help them succeed in their endeavors. So with that said, our first question for the panel is, how did your participation in the program change your perspective of Hawaiian cultural methodologies and values? Let's start with Jill.
Pilina mai ke aloha o Jill Terizumi ko inoa no mililani mai au he kaka lalo makekula ka ulu o Honolulu. Aloha everyone. I am Jill Terizumi and I'm an academic counselor at Honolulu Community College. And you know, I actually come from a family, my cousins are actually Hawaiian, and I was growing up, I was surrounded by love, by ohana, by Pilina, and just having those values growing up. You know, I feel really fortunate that they had taught me, you know, some traditions, Hawaiian traditions, and also I'm full Japanese, right? So intertwining the two. And so my values actually, when I joined Ho'alaho, it just enhanced it and it expanded my culture-based lens. It helped me to grow professionally as a mother, as a daughter, and it was a really emotional experience for me because I really grew from inside out and it transformed me. And so now, you know, looking at my perspectives on Native Hawaiian culture, I have so much respect and I'm just overjoyed that I had this opportunity to join the program because I feel that I've grown in so many different ways, professionally, personally, and just having that sense of confidence with me, but also knowing who I am and being able to give back to my students, giving all my energy, all my time to give to my students and to give to my counseling team. So all of the life lessons I learned through Ho'alaho has really expanded my my best practice.
Hello, Jill. Mo? Maureen?
Aloha mai kākou. Mahalo nui alapaki and everyone for having me on this panel and participating in this. Through Ho'alaho, it, as Jill said, it really enhanced my perspective of Hawaiian culture. It deepened and widened what I already believed to be that relationships, Pilina, provide the foundation of everything, really. And even in learning more about particular practices, like the meaning and purpose of protocol, I can see how one of those purposes is being to offer what you have, always being able to offer what you have as a way to build and maintain Pilina. And so in our current times of the pandemic, this perspective has really played a huge role in my pedagogy. And it's my first time teaching online. I am a relatively new faculty member, so I didn't have any resources developed for the courses that I'm teaching this semester. But then going back and thinking of this idea of Pilina, of what can I offer? And I had myself to offer to my students. And so I tried to make myself as available as possible. I made one of their first assignments to be to sign up for a 15-minute one-on-one talk story session, just so that we could kind of touch base and make sure everyone got off to a good start, had understanding of the format. But even so, like, I still need to reevaluate this. I still need to bring back and wonder how I can make things better. I attended, I think it was a panel on dealing with Mauna Kea back a year ago, where a student had said, and I can't remember what context this was, but she said the words of like, I can't just come in and make house. Like you have to invite me in. I'm not going to put myself in there and make myself at home right away. So now I'm asking myself to build my relationships, build my Pilina with my students. What can I do to make them feel more welcome in this online environment where I can't like physically make them comfortable in the classroom? How can I do that online? So this program has really deepened that sense of Pilina for me.
Mahalo nui. So, the program, Ho'alaho, throughout the years, we always refer to it as, this reawakening. And we always ask all of our participants at the end, we're always going, or even during the actual program, there's going to be a time where we're going to start to see what our awakening will be. And so that kind of falls in line with our next question. So the program's name is Ho'alaho, and it refers to a reawakening. So after participating in the program, what would you say was, or is, or can still be your Ho'alaho, both professionally and personally? Let's go ahead and start with Mo this time.
Mahalo. Yeah, so I am experiencing kind of repetitive and ongoing reawakenings. And most recently, it's in the culture and place-based education realm. I have this kind of epiphany feeling of viewing a culture through a mathematical lens, being a math instructor, versus viewing mathematics through a cultural lens. And kind of through that personal revelation, I guess, I realized that I don't just want to give mathematical examples with a Hawaiian context. To me, that's kind of viewing Hawaiian culture through a mathematical lens. And so I'm still participating as an outsider, kind of making guesses about things a little bit. Instead, I personally want to be able to see mathematics through a Hawaiian lens. And for me, this means that I'm going to need to take on the responsibility to learn the history, the culture, the mo'olelo, in order to be able to provide that perspective. And so with that, I feel that there's going to be tons more moments of reawakening because I'm just going to be constantly learning.
Mahalo. Jill?
So my Ho'alaho experience, I wanted to actually find a project that would help my students. And I was just really fascinated about Native Hawaiian best practices for health and wellness, because whenever I meet a student on Zoom or phone, I'm always asking, like, how are you doing? How are things going? How's your daughter? How's your family? How is job and work and school life combined? How's that balance and that flow? So I focus my project on trying to find that holistic balance between physical health, mental, emotional health, and spiritual health. And a shout out to Kuma Alapaki because he gave me some resources, and I used that model of Lokahi and combining the three. And I had my students actually identify how they stay physically healthy, mentally, and spiritually. And so that was part of my Ho'alaho. I also shared about all of my experiences going to Moku'e Island and going to Koho'olave and going to Lo'ikala Park and sharing the side of it where, I used to see Lo'ikala Park as just a park, but now learning about the Mo'olelo stories about Haumea, the goddess of Haumea, and how sacred and special that place is, I shared that knowledge with my students. And it was the one thing that I noticed through this whole project, it brought me closer to my students. And so I actually, for my part 2 project, I took them to Lo'ikala Park. They got in the mud, they got dirty, they learned about the Mo'olelo stories, the history of Lo'ikala Park, and they were able to I was able to experience that experience with them. And I think that's what brought me closer to the students. They thought that, wow, Jill, she will actually get into the lo'i and actually get dirty. And so all through this whole experience, I feel that one, it did help to bring me closer to my students, and then two, I feel like I've grown in so many different ways, and it's really hard to explain how it's transformed me, but I feel transformed through this action plan, through the Ho'aloho experience.
Mahalo. So, Jareen and Hau'oli, though you folks were not participants, you guys were co-facilitators of the teaching and learning program. Can you folks share a little bit with us about your Ho'aloho? Because, no matter what position we're in, there's always a reawakening happening. Yeah.
I think for me, Ho'aloho is synonymous with like lifelong learning. There's a constant learning that's happening. And even as a facilitator, there's learning that's happening for me. And the interesting thing is there's a word in Hawaiian, and it's one word for both teaching and learning, and that is a'o. So it tells me that, in a Hawaiian perspective, learning and teaching is one thing. And whether you're the teacher, you're kind of the student too, and even the student, quote student, I don't know if you can see my air quotes there, are also teachers. So me as the kumu can also learn from my hawana. One of the ho'alaho moments for me was every time when I see, at the end of the year, we have a ho'ike, where each participant actually shares their action plan. So first semester, they're drinking in all the information, and they kind of coming up with how they can implement some of these approaches into their work. And then they second semester, they're actually implementing an action plan. They have an action plan in place, and they're implementing. And at the end of that second semester, they share their results out. And it's amazing to see that maybe just one little tweak, one little thing that they add can make a big change in their outcomes with students, the impact on students. That little thing that Jill went and took her students to Lo'ikalo Park had changed the relationship that she has with her students, yeah? So that's my ho'alaho.
Mahalo, Hau'oli.
Hi, mahalo. Mahalo nui no ke'e ni no. For me, I really look at this as a really tough question, right? And think for all of us, we all kind of knew Ho'aloho was like my baby, right? I really, really like cherished the Ho'aloho during my time there. And, and for me, when I really think about this question, I'm currently in my Ho'aloho, right? And again, as Auntie Jareen and everybody kind of said, Ho'aloho is an ongoing process. And, I'm always going to be in my Ho'aloho, and just kind of some quick background before. I was not a part of this sort of realm prior to this. It kind of was, but not too much. I wasn't part of this sort of realm prior to coming to this position. And when I came into my own, when I had this opportunity to be a part of Ho'aloho, right, it really just, I found the place where I resonate, right? I found the place where my heart sings, and I found that, this is really where I should be, right? This is the aina was becoming lit for me, right? I was having my reawakening. I was starting to see what a career looked like. I was starting to see what an oihana looked like, right? I was really trying to really understanding what my kuleana is, to that sense of what being Hawaiian is, a sense of what living in Hawaii is. But specific, I mean, if I had to choose a specific moment, I mean, there's so much, but one of the specific moments I guess you could say is that experience on Ko'olave, right? And so participants, whoever, if you finish the program, participants are invited to go to Ko'olave, which is that island off of Maui, which is mostly inaccessible, right? And so we'd spend 4 or 5 days on island, right? And it's really just a culminating experience of seeing culture and place-based education in action, right? And seeing really like a years long work come in fruition, and people just being in it and in the moment, right? And really putting things like electronics and emails and social media and everything on the side, and really just being in tune with land, right? That was a really an ho'alaho moment, because it reminded me of my roots, right? It reminded me of living in Waimea being with my family in Kohala, right, is just being one with the Aina. And so for me, that's my ho'alaho, and it's my continual ho'alaho. Mahalo.
Mahalo.
Mahalo nui. So when the campus first implemented the Ho'alaho Hawaiian culture and place-based teaching and learning program, one major concern that was raised: would my participation in the program require me to teach Hawaiian studies or Hawaiian language? We do use Hawaiian culture and Hawaiian language as the vehicle to deliver and understand culture and place-based pedagogies and methods. But like I mentioned earlier, this is for everyone. This is for not just Hawaiian, but all of us on campus. And this is to help all our students. So our response to that question would be, the objectives of the program isn't to teach Hawaiian culture or Hawaiian studies or language, but to teach through culture. And then oftentimes the participants, like Mo and Jill, will realize how their own culture can help their students with the content, grasping the content, understanding it, and applying it as well. So with that in mind, what message would you like to offer to others who are hesitant to participate in a Hawaiian culture-based program similar to Ho'alaho? Jill?
So I was fortunate. I had Melody, who's another counselor. She had gone through the program, and so she gave me some tips and advice, and it was really my decision, right? It was a big time commitment. I wanted to make sure I could fulfill every single workshop and every single field trip, and along with my duties. So I made the commitment. I made it work. And all I can say is, please just have an open mindset and an open heart, because I think again, I want to just stress that this experience changed me from inside out. So that's all. That's the only piece of advice I can give any newcomer, is that jump right in and take the plunge.
Well, Jill? Mo?
Yeah, so this is a bit two-pronged for me, and the first one might sound a little bit kind of guilt-driven, perhaps because how I was brought up. But personally, I think anyone in Hawaii has a kuleana to sincerely learn about Hawaiian culture as much as possible. And something that also came to mind was I was taking Kumukulani's hula class, actually, and he was talking about pronunciation, whether it's a hard va or a soft wa. And the idea is you do what is done in the place you are at, right? You recognize the context. And so with that in mind too, we are in Hawaii, and so we should be learning about Hawaii. And then the non, I guess, guilt-driven message would be that my introduction to Hawaiian culture was very family-based. It was actually through my ex-mother-in-law, who was born and raised on Kauai. And so I didn't experience Hawaii ever as a tourist, I guess, which I'm very blessed to not have that, because I got to meet aunties and uncles and cousins and have long talk story sessions on the lanai, where literally like they put up their couches facing each other so that it was the talk story area, and hearing jokes of Hawaiian experiences and having homemade food, and always coming from those experiences feeling this tremendous amount of love and care for one another. So again, that foundation of Pilina, and knowing how fundamental it is to care for everyone and everything. And coming out of that, I just couldn't imagine why anyone wouldn't want to learn how to see and live in the world that way. So that's kind of the piece of advice there. And also going off of what Jill was saying, so my excitement about this program made me instantly feel like everyone needs to have this experience. And I went to Auntie Jarina about like a different department that I came from at a different institution, was like, I think this would be so great for them. She had the wonderful words of wisdom that I was able to take away from this program what I did because I was ready to learn. And you can't force that on anyone. So you also have to come into the program ready and willing to learn, which means being open to the possibilities, being open with your heart and mind, not expecting that you're gonna like check off certain boxes on a list and say like, yes, I've accomplished this, right? You're just open to the possibilities.
Oh, mahalo mo. And my apologies. I mean, Maureen's her nickname with us. We call her Mo, if you're wondering. So thank you. You folks have given us a background of your experience. Now, as far as the attendees, please submit questions in the Q&A button on the webinar to ask the panelists, all four, or any of us. I do have a question here for anyone. If they want to share with us how did their ho'alaho or their action plan that they developed through their experience impact their students, and as far as helping them with their content and application as well as success. Did you notice a difference in your students after you participated in the program as well? Who would like to answer that question? Jill?
Oh, go ahead. Well,
I'll be real quick. It's a little hard for me, I guess, to answer this question because I was the most recent cohort. And so our experience was actually interrupted by COVID. My action plan was also in partnership with another participant, Coco, and we actually wanted to create mathematical workshops for our faculty and staff, kind of actually along the lines of what Auntie Jarina and Hau'oli were saying, that ho'alaho is there to nurture and nourish faculty in order to support our students. So we wanted to nurture and nourish faculty with their own mathematical mindsets. So then when they encounter students, they're passing on more of a positive relationship with mathematics to help them be successful in mathematics. There has been research showing that we actually pass on our math anxieties more than our math abilities. And so we're hoping to continue that more, and working on developing online workshops to help facilitate this more as we transition during the pandemic. But perhaps the biggest difference that I've seen, again, with students, so many of them this semester have been very open with me about what's going on with them. And so really taking to heart, learning each other's perspective, understanding what's going on with one another, and just treating each other like ohana.
I'm going to add something real quick too. So I don't have a specific story, but one thing that I could kind of tell that there was definitely an effect on the students is that I would often get comments from many different students, and they would come up to me like, "Hey, Hau'oli, so-and-so is in your class, yeah?" And like, "What you mean?" "Oh, so-and-so is in that professional development, ho'alaho, yeah?" And I was like, "Oh yeah?" So yeah, I can tell, right? They're talking about stuff, they're talking about language, and they're talking about the aina, right, in that class, and they're sharing all these types of things, right? And so, I mean, it just was telling me that the students are noticing, or the students are aware about it. They know, they see it, right? And so just having that feedback from the students, recognizing, oh yeah, so-and-so's in your class, yeah, I can tell, right? That right there is verifying that this program there's some sort of effect on the students. Yeah.
Mahalo, Jill.
For me, it was maybe I had them do a health pledge, after I did my Ho'alaho presentation for carpentry, welding, sheet, and electrical. And, after they did that group project, they actually wrote back to me that they actually got to talk to other students in their class, and the way that my programs are set up is that, in carpentry, welding, sheet, and electrical, they do their class and they go out into the lab, right? And so by doing this activity, I had them get into groups of 4. They identified the physical, mental, and spiritual ways that they could stay healthy. And their feedback on the evaluation was like, whoa, I got to talk to so-and-so, and we got to, just chat about how we both stay physically healthy. And so I provided, I guess, that opportunity for the students at Pilina, which is, I didn't think of it that way, but, group work is great when you can do it. And, with the health pledge, I had them write a health pledge. And this is an idea from Kumu. Actually, Hauli, thank you for that idea, because then at the end of the semester, I had them reevaluate their health pledge, because I kept their health pledges, and I asked them, hey, how's that exercise program going? Or are you going to the gym twice a week? Or are you eating more non-processed foods? And are you bringing healthy snacks to school? So how it affected them, I feel like it did affect them in different ways. And those are the ways that I kind of did notice that, having them create the health pledge, and then also they built Pilina.
Mahalo. Kalani.
It looks like we have another, not a question, but a comment from our attendees. Another valuable outcome of the program is seeing the interdepartmental relationships that were built on campus. Now employees from different departments and divisions are collaborating on efforts when they may not have done so before. I have heard from parents and community members that Honolulu CC has developed a reputation for a collaborative approach to support student success, and I think this program is part of that effort. Oh, mahalo. Yes, definitely. That's one of the things that we've, a lot of comments that we have gotten back by the participants over the past 4 years is that, they talk about that they've not just met a fellow colleague, but actually had the time to work with them and network with them and actually be a part of their professional lives, where before they'll just pass each other in the hallways or probably see each other just at the college meetings. And other than that, everybody will go back into their respective areas. So that is definitely something that we have seen over the years as well. And then we do have one question that came through. How did you encourage non-Hawaiians to participate in the program? So this kind of goes back to question number 3. Yeah. Does anybody want to take that? We have a few minutes left that we can go ahead and answer that question.
I think I'll toss it over to Ha'oli.
I was actually going to toss it to Alapaki, but no. So I think this was this is one of the things that I ran into in recruitment, right? And I think this is one of the hesitations. Like, a lot of people wouldn't respond to me, and I would physically have to go show up at their office and be like, hey, you read my email or what? And then and then they would talk to me. He's like, I don't know if this is the right program for me. And all these different things. And I needed some guidance on this, right? I really needed some guidance. So I talked to Kalaine and talked to Alapaki, and one of the themes that came out of it was, what's good for Hawaiians is good for everybody else, right? We have this again, and also as Mo said, right? Because we live in Hawaii, we call Hawaii our home. Whether we were born and raised here, whether we were here just for a little bit of time, right? Hawaii is currently our home, and we have that kuleana, that responsibility, and that privilege, right? To give back and to learn and to be a little bit more conscious about the things that we do here in Hawaii, right? And so, there was this sort of buy-in that we had to do, that we had to talk about, and I definitely needed some kokua on that. And if I left anything out, Alapaki, Anake, Kalani, you can fill in, but yeah.
Yes, mahalo, Haole. Yes, definitely, exactly what you said. This is our home. The host culture is Hawaiian culture, but like I've mentioned already several times, it's also multicultural. Yeah. We are very diverse, and the foundation here in Hawaii is Hawaiian culture, and place is part of that. Place is part of our genealogy, where our campus belongs, and it has a rich history, which we talked about. Before even the Kapalama Canal draining the wetlands and the industrial area today, that rich history, when students and participants and even faculty staff learn about it, really helps them identify where our campus, instead of just coming here for 8 o'clock classes, 8:30 classes, and leave at 2:30. But there's one more question in the Q&A about how have we adapted since the pandemic. Relationship, Pilina, is really important, and of course, in Hawaiian style and Hawaiian ways and local style. Oh, we want to see each other, we want to honey and hug each other and everything. But right now, it's safer not to do that. How have we been able to adapt to delivering what our content and our focus and themes are? Maybe Jarina can help us.
Okay, I think even though we can't hug each other physically or anything like that, I think it's how we approach our classes when we're on Zoom. If it's a synchronous class, I think we take time to connect with one another and ask each other how each other is doing. And that's an important part of Pilina, creating that space and that time in the classroom. If I may, there's a few more minutes left. I want to just mention that as we move forward and we move ahead and in professional development or our Aloha Aina professional learning, Ku Kalahale is a new Title III grant that the Honolulu Community College was able to get. And that one is focused completely on professional learning, Aloha Aina professional learning. And the nice thing about this one is that like Ku Kalahale, which is the reign that covers the Honolulu district, this is a collaborative grant with Kapi'olani Community College. So our next cohort, which it will be starting in mid-spring, Ho'o Hawaii, will be around the pedagogy of Mo'olelo. So I encourage you, if you're out there and you're interested, whether you've been in Ho'aloho or not, be a part of this Mo'oku Auho and be a part of the Mo'olelo of Aloha Aina professional learning.
Mahalo, Auntie Jarina. So we'll turn the floor back over to Alapaki to do a few closing remarks before we conclude with Chancellor Karen Lee.
Oh, mahalo kako. And yes, Ku Kalahale is our continuation of this culture and place-based approaches, especially during a pandemic. And I know we've been able to have more resources and content delivered virtually to help our students and participants connect, as well as have them connect with us two ways. Yeah, so back and forth. So again, we plan on sustaining this program and building stronger relationships in our community and on campus with our students to help them succeed. I really appreciate everyone's attendance and listening to our experiences and stories. There's more to come. And Ola Niuhelewai, yeah, building our relationships, Pilina. I'd like to turn it over to Chancellor Karen Lee for some closing comments.
Thank you, and special mahalo to all of our panelists and moderators, Alapaki Luke, Kalani Flores, Haoli Lorenzo Arlarco, Jarina Picaro, Jill Terizumi, and Maureen Kearns. We really appreciate your time and expertise as great contributors and leaders on our campus and in our community. And thank you to the audience for joining us today. You will be receiving an email with a link to the recording in case you'd like to share it with anyone. And also mahalo to the UH Foundation and the UH Office of Alumni Relations, without whom we could not have had this webinar today. Thank you everyone for joining us. Have a good day.